Hey everybody, welcome back to Video Game SO. Tarek and I got a very fun, very exciting, and very special video for you guys today for two very distinct reasons. One, what is inside of this cardboard box is the rarest arcade prototype I have ever found to date, and I can't believe I have it. Secondarily, when you're watching this video, it's been scheduled to go live exactly when I do my panel at the Midwest Gaming Classic Expo. Today from 4:30 to 5:15, I'm talking about how to find, acquire, and dump rare hardware, whether it's the arcade or home console variant. So I figured we could have some fun on the channel while I'm doing that panel, and you can basically pretend you're there, minus the ability to ask me real-time questions. Because what is inside of this box is something that you have never seen before, I have never seen before, and up until about a month ago, I didn't even know it existed. What is inside of this box is a prototype 3DO M2 arcade board, as well as a version of Battletrist that I have never seen before. Now, if you're not aware, Battletrist came out in 1998, and it's one of those games that absolutely is a hidden gem, and it is an extremely rare game. If you can even find a copy of this for sale working, you're talking in the 4-digit price tag, and honestly, I rarely have ever seen them go up for sale outside of the fact that I now have one today. And at the end of the video, I will show you what is on the disc, and do be aware that if you go to my archive 3DO M2 page, this has been uploaded and preserved for absolutely everyone who wants to take a look at it. Now, I'm sure it'll take a little bit to get working in MAME, but that's just how it works. This game is now preserved for all time. And you'll see here it says PCB4 Battletrist across both that sticker as well as written on top of the PCB. So what my assumption is here is this is location test unit number 4. Now throughout the video I'm going to go over every single thing about this board that is not correct to explain to you why in fact it is a prototype and location test. And I know you're thinking to yourself, well, Anthony, you showed us this back in 2018. What could there possibly be out there that you've never seen before? And I thought the exact same thing until this board came across my attention span. And you'll see here, if we take a look right in the middle, there's going to be that CDE2 chip. This is basically a low-level I/O chip, kind of handles some of the OS functions, and it has a 3DO silkscreen on it, which in and of itself isn't that strange unless you know a lot about the hardware. Otherwise, the PowerPC chips are identical to what you would expect. But this chip right here with the 3DO logo only ever appeared on Toei Polystars and Total Vice in 1997. By 1998, when you get to Battletrist, Heat of 11, as well as Evil Knight or Hell Knight, it is demarcated as a completely different silkscreen with the Matsushita logo on top, not the 3DO logo, because the sale had been completed. If we take a look at an actual Battletrist board, you see here it says CDE2, it has a code, it has an M for Matsushita and where it was made, and it says AM2 at the bottom. That's because this is the second revision of the motherboard. Or if you go back over to the Battletrist that I am talking about right now, it is on a completely different board set, the AM1. That was only ever used again for Toei Polystars and Total Vice with that 3DO logo on the front. But I know what you're thinking, that doesn't exactly prove 100% of what I am saying here. What makes this PCB so unique? We have to get in a little bit further and talk about everything. You'll see here on this RAM chip, the 4 RAM chips on the outside edge, they have been hand soldered onto the board, not machine soldered, and you can even see some flux residue left over on the chips, showing you that this has been hand reworked. And if you're not aware, some boards came with 4 RAM chips, some came with 8. If we take a look at the codes here, it's a little hard to see, but the 4 in the center are all 001 batch number, and they've all been soldered by machine. On the outside edges, it is 013, and those have been done by hand. So these 4 RAM chips were added secondarily. And where does that come from? It comes from Toei Polystars. This game released with only 4 RAM chips for a total of 8 megabytes of RAM, and every other M2 arcade board ran on 8 chips of 2 megabytes each to give you a total of 16 megabytes of RAM. So this top motherboard, having the 3DO silkscreen, having the AM1 designation for the first revision of the motherboard, and having 4 RAM chips soldered on, shows us that this started life as a Toei Polystars board, not a Battletrist board, and that is very unique. Now you can just solder RAM onto a Toei Polystars board, and run Total Vice should be totally fine doing that, but for Battletrist you would need the security board underneath it, so there'd be no reason to convert this if you were just an arcade operator or end user, because without that security board you'd never get Battletrist to boot. So this isn't a situation where somebody has made a conversion after Konami shipped these things out. It just doesn't work like that. And if you're not aware, while I'm at MGC, I also have Tobe Polystars with 2 arcade sticks on the floor right now so people can play and experience my M2 collection, because I always want to share. And if we take a look at a real Battletress board, you're going to see the 8 RAM chips are the same. Now if we take a look at the actual disc, this is where I can definitively show you that this is not a conversion, and big thanks to Gachi-chan. He actually sent me the auction listing on Twitter. This found me, and that does happen sometimes. We have a JAC revision of Battletress, we have a JAA revision of Battletress, the 2 versions that are known to exist. So what in the hell is this disc right here? Battletress in green, 636 AAA02. If you're not aware of the conventions for the letters for Konami, J stands for Japan, A stands for Asia, E stands for Europe, and U stands for USA. Since this game came out in 1998, I have never seen a release of Battletress outside of Japan. It is widely a quote-unquote known fact that this game was never actually taken out of Japan and released anywhere else. But now suddenly I have a disc with AAA on it versus JAA, and that denotes an Asian test release. A lot of times Konami and other arcade developers would send a few boards to different regions to have them location tested and see how they did. If it was a success, they would release more. If it didn't really test well, they wouldn't do anything. And if you had a couple of extra Tobe Polystar boards sitting around, you just have some engineer in the Konami offices grab his soldering iron, hand solder on 4 new RAM chips to take it from 8 megabytes to 16 megabytes. You press some discs and you're off to the test release races. Now if we take a look at the JAMA board underneath that prototype top board, I keep saying prototype, but really it is a conversion that doesn't have the right set of silks on it to be a Battletress. Everything else on this JAMA board and the security board is one-to-one identical as what you would expect, including the dust on it. The BIOS is exactly the same as what would appear on the actual Battletress board. I did dump it, the hex was 1-to-1, and then you also have that extra EEPROM, the ST, that holds part of the security code on the board to get the game to actually boot. So as far as the 2 boards underneath this, these are just bone stock and they appear the same across all releases. Now if we take a look at an actual Battletress top PCB, you're going to see it is 3449 at the end with a 7F at the beginning. This is basically batching and serialization of the boards. If we go down here and look at that hand soldered RAM board, you're going to see it is 7D1121. This is basically in the same range as every single Tobe Polystars motherboard I've seen, and I do own 2. So again, a further proof that the top board on this Battletress AAA region is definitely a Tobe Polystars, at least at the start of its life. All of the evidence as far as the serial numbers, the hand soldering, the fact that it started life with 4 RAM chips, not 8, the fact that it is an AM1 revision, not an AM2, support that this was one of the boards from a game that released in 1997, and considering only one of those games, Tobe Polystars, had half the RAM and the other game, Total Vice, had all of the RAM, you can definitively say that this was a Tobe Polystars board at some point in time. And again, because we have that AAA region disc, it is not a CDR, it is a press disc, and the fact that we have everything else matching, we can say definitively that this is something Konami made in office to location test in Asia, whether that's China or another Asian country. Thailand, I do not know whatsoever. But the game came out in 1998, it's now 2025, and the first evidence of Battletress ever leaving Japanese shores is in my hands, and of course I am going to dump it for everyone. You can already find the link if you want. But you'll see here, luckily, the dump was good, the disc was in very good shape, the overall motherboard is extremely clean, and the case barely seemed like it saw any use whatsoever. And that's probably because after the location test, it just sat in a warehouse. Because things never really truly die in China, they end up at a recycler somewhere, and you can find some of the strangest things sitting in a warehouse if you know where to look, or because Gachi-chan actually sent me the link where somebody else knows to look. And I will always acquire this stuff and dump it for everyone, so if you ever see any rare arcade hardware out there, just send me a link. Maybe you can't pick it up, but I will do everything I can. The burn was successful, and as I go through hex comparisons from the JAA dump that I did myself, there are fundamental differences in the hex code. There are changes in this game. Now you're going to have to wait for me to get this captured. I've been very busy recently, and I do have to remove that security chip off the bottom security board, that real-time clock, and craft a new one. But as I went through the hex of this dump, you're going to see 100% an AAA coded discs. You have GX636 AAA, and in the left-hand hexadecimal, you have 19 and 98, which is the year of release. This is how Konami coded these things, so we know full well this adheres to everything else I've ever seen on the 3DO M2. So what I need to do is desolder that real-time clock chip, and I need to socket it, and I need to write my own file. The good thing is it is a pretty standard format as far as how the code is put in and what it expects. All I'm going to do is take a JAA dump from the real-time clock chip and change one letter, and that should be enough with the reverse endian checksum on the 7K chip to be able to get this thing to boot. In worst case scenario, I can always just change the game code on the burn and boot it on an actual JAA or JAC revision Battletrist board, which I do own. But this has been a fun one. It's the first time I've ever found any prototype hardware for the 3DO M2. This was definitely made by Konami. It's definitely a region we've never seen before, and it has been hand reworked. And because you would never convert a board without the security board that Battletrist came with, there is no chance in hell that this thing was some sort of conversion that an operator tried in a different region, because none of that would make sense of the hardware you'd have on hand. And right now I'm probably still doing that panel if you watched it 4:30, but if you're watching later, it is done. And again, I've added this to my archive.org 3DO M2 preservation page, so now there is a third version of Battletrist out there in the world, and I will also get in touch with the people from MAME so they can try to incorporate it in a new update so you can try this version out at some point in time. But we're done. Hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you next time. Bye bye.